yourself to someone in particular or several people and feel bad about yourself or about your life, or feel bad that you're not where they are, then this episode is going to be so valuable for you. So, a lot of the time when my humanitarian clients come coach with me, they often talk about how they keep comparing themselves to other people in terms of where their lives are, in terms of their careers, in terms of their level of growth in life, right? And then they use those comparisons to feel bad about themselves. And the usual way that they feel bad about is something like, I should have been there where they are and I'm not. I'm not that smart and intelligent as they are. I should have been at the same level of growth as they are, but I'm not. And then use this as a way to feel less confident about themselves, use this to feel less worthy, use this to feel bad about their lives. And then this keeps compounding into how uh, no matter what they try and no matter what they do, they're not going to get to what they want to. So, if this is your way of comparing, which I believe is most of the people on earth do that way, then here is how I would like for you to approach comparing in a more healthy way. Because the way that you have been comparing yourself to others, you can see how unhealthy it is. You can also see how toxic it is on your self confidence, self trust, on your growth. So, therefore, if you keep noticing that this is not helping you, but at the same time, you feel like you don't know what to do about it, and your brain keeps comparing yourself and your life to someone else, then here is another way to replace that comparison with another type of comparison. And that comparison, I'm calling it a right way of comparing. And of course, this is in quotes because there are obviously no right or wrong ways to do that. It's just some ways are very useful and some ways are very harmful. And usually, when humanitarians talk to me about ways that they're comparing themselves or they keep comparing themselves, that's usually very harmful and toxic to their lives, to where they're going. So, the way that I'm proposing that you use comparison to your advantage, or the way that is very useful to you, is take those people that you're comparing yourself to, and maybe you can even name them who they are, and then look at how are the ways they're thinking about achieving the things that you would like to, how are the ways they are energetically feeling about achieving those things, and then what actions they're taking, and also what actions they're not taking, so that they keep creating the results that you would like to have, but you don't yet have. Right? So if we compare this way, then at least we will have a lot more insights as to how they're thinking about this, how their attitude about this, how they're taking actions or not taking certain actions. And then we can learn from it and then implement it in our own lives as well, if we desire the same type of outcomes as they have it. Right? And in this situation, the caveat obviously is that we're not wanting to just look at where they are now, because where they are now might be a lot further than where we are. So, therefore, it might be discouraging to compare their outcomes of last 10 years to our outcomes of 1 year. Do you know what I mean? Like, if they have gone through this path a long time ago and we are now comparing ourselves to their current outcomes, then it might be discouraging because we will feel like, okay, I could never do that thing that they are doing, right? I could never be at that place that they are being. So, if I give you an example, is that when I used to work in Ukraine in the UN, one of the, well, there were several senior executives that I really admired and loved, and I compared myself to how I wish I would be like them, and I would be thinking, or I would be achieving those results, those levels of career growth. But also I love the way that they were thinking about certain things, right? So therefore, if I were to compare myself to them and say, oh, I don't have it and I feel bad about it, then not only I wouldn't learn anything about them, but also I would be unfair to myself, because their path of having gone through the career path, they were 5, 10 years ahead of me, right? So I could only see the 10 years ahead of me results. I didn't see back in the day at the same level of growth as I was, how their journey was. So that's why it would be unfair for me to keep comparing myself to their growth that they worked on for extra 10 years than me or 15 years than me. Then of course it wouldn't be comparable. So coming back to my point about how to make it useful and healthy when we're using comparison. So once you take the people that you admire, the people that you would like to who have the results that you want and you would like to have their results, then what you can do next is, instead of staying in the negative energy of how you are not there where they are, you could start backtracing as to what are the ways they think about those results, right? What are the ways their attitudes are towards those results? What are the ways that they have been taking actions, and what are the ways they decided not to go for? And when you start looking and dissecting from that place, then it starts getting more clear and not mystical at all. And then you start looking at, okay, these are the ways they're thinking about this, and these are the ways they are problem solving, and these are the ways they are taking actions, and I could do the same thing. So, to give you an example from my humanitarian life, as I said, in Ukraine specifically, I had several people that I really admired, especially their way of working. So, the way that I admired their way of working was that they didn't indulge in any politics, in any intrigues, in any, I don't know, like office rumors and whatsoever. They were very focused on uh, bringing the impact that we all wanted, and they were very focused on how best to bring that impact, and therefore they were doing the things that were the most efficient way of doing things, instead of just staying keep going to every meeting whatsoever. And also, if they went to a meeting, their contribution would be right on spot, to the point, and it was nothing excessive. It was nothing about, look at me, how great I am, right? But instead, it was very targeted to solving the problem that the group in the meeting was having. And whenever they talked, everyone would listen very carefully, because they would know that how valuable these people's contributions are. And when I saw what kind of a senior leader one can be, and I really admired and wanted to be that, then I started looking at my own life of how I was contributing and how I was thinking about this, how I was thinking about the impact. And then I started realizing, oh, I actually spent a lot of time thinking about how someone liked it or disliked it, or I should be careful here and careful there, or let me not offend this person and this person. It was so much about that. And then I thought, okay, I don't want to be responsible for other people's emotions. They take care of themselves. What I want to do is be the most efficient, value giving professional who does not play the games, but rather goes only on the impact and how best we can create the impact for people we're serving, right? And then I started also looking at, okay, how do I need to think about myself, and how do I need to think about my contributions and my value that I bring to the table? And then what are the things that I should stop doing? And the things that I had to stop doing were intrigues, or like, walking on eggshells and people pleasing. All of that I needed to get rid of. Drama is something also I needed to get rid of. Like, my brain would dramatize about, oh my god, this happened and now da da da. Instead, what they would do is they were always expecting that there will be some complications coming, and feel prepared to solve those complications, while my brain would always go into, oh no, this is not how it's supposed to be. Why can't we just go and do the work the way that we planned? And then I realized, oh, a mature senior leader expects complications to be coming at every stage of the process, and also feel prepared to resolve them, right? So this is how I started comparing myself to, oh, they are the way that they're showing up, the way that they're handling problems, the way that they are contributing in meetings were this way, and the way that they are showing up is what I like, and therefore what they must be thinking about themselves, about the work. And then I started doing this as well. And this is the comparison that you can do with others to get to improving and growing yourself in the process. That will be very valuable to your life, right? And now, as I go to my $1 million level impact, what I also realized how else I could compare myself to other people, that I find it very useful and not in the toxic way, is the way that I compare to say, okay, if those people are doing it and creating $1 million, $1 billion of impact, then it means that another human brain figured out how to do that, which also means that since I have a human brain as well, then I can figure it out as well. Right? So this is a very useful way to compare yourself, because then you say you can create the same outcomes that other people are creating, because they have a similar brain, their intelligence probably at a similar lane as mine. So therefore, they must be thinking this way to create this result. They must be feeling this way. They must be acting this way, taking these actions, and they must be not taking these other actions, and then creating these results. So it is possible, it is doable. All I need to do now is I need to find my own version of thinking the way that is useful to creating that outcome. I need to find my own version, authentic version of how I feel in the process doing it. And then all the actions that I take and all the actions that I don't take become very clear to then go and create the outcomes that I want as well. Right? So you could also do this for yourself in the transitioning as well, especially if you admire people who have transitioned to better outcomes than the previous careers they had, like myself and maybe other people that you know in your own surroundings. Then what you could do is you could say, okay, the way they approach the transitioning is this way, right? So if you take my example, the way that I approach transitioning is that, okay, there will be a lot of turmoils and emotional side, maybe even more than I expect. And then the way that I think about those turmoils is that I can handle and I can process those emotions, no matter how big and how rocky they are, to a point that I get good at handling them. So if you're comparing yourself to me as an example, then you need to know that, or you need to dissect as to, okay, Asel told us that she had gone through a lot of turmoils in terms of emotions and fears and all of this. And she also told us that she learned to process them and not get rid of them or not to avoid them. And then she got good at handling those emotions. Okay, let me try to learn how to do that. Another thing that you could do is, if you were comparing yourself to me or to my journey of transitioning, then you could say, okay, she told us that the most important thing is figuring out the fear and the trust. And the more you trust yourself in the process, the more you keep going to creating better outcomes than your previous career. So let me find out what other ways that I can build my muscle of trust and how much I can trust myself to create the outcomes that I want to. And then you could also say, okay, she keeps talking about problem solving and how powerful we are to solve any problem. So let me go and figure out what are the problems that I need to be solving and how I'm capable of solving all of those problems if I were to create the outcomes that I want to that are better than the previous career, right? And the same, you could say that, okay, Asel keeps talking about how you don't need to be influenced by your circumstances, by your current crisis, or by whatever is happening in around you, because you are more powerful than any of the crises around you, and you can find a way, figure out a way to not get influenced by those circumstances, but also keep going towards what you really would like to. And then you could go and explore how you might do that for yourself as well, right? So you can see that if we start approaching comparison from this perspective of how they're thinking, how they're problem solving, how they're acting, how they're not acting, what are the things that they're doing, the people that we admire or people that we wish we had their results, then it becomes such a doable thing to do instead of just keep either bashing them for how they are different than you are, or bitching about yourself as to how you're not capable and how you were supposed to do this and you're not doing this. And if you keep going into that indulgence, then it just keeps harming you, and more importantly, it will keep reinforcing how incapable you are. And I'm assuming that's not what you are wanting. If you are really wanting the results of someone else's life, then you can start looking at, okay, I would like to be in similar place that those people are, and I admire them for XYZ reasons. Therefore, let me dissect what might be the way that they're thinking and feeling and doing things, and let me start doing that, finding my own version of how that looks like for me, and then start implementing them, and also knowing that comparing yourself to feel bad about yourself is going to just take you away further from your goals. And since you don't want to do that and you are capable of creating any results you want to, then you start learning how to do that. Even if you're not able to talk to them, you can still from outside dissect what are the ways they might be handling things, problem solving things, thinking about things, what their attitudes are, and then you start finding your own variations of how to do that for yourself. So, my dears, if you would like to work on this and finally stop comparing yourself that feels very bad, then come coach with me. I would love to support you in this process of creating better transitioning outcomes than your previous career.